the briefing today is look at how we can simplify IT with application portfolio management, and in so doing identify opportunities for rationalization and consolidation. So the agenda itself is pretty simple. I'm going to look at what some of the motivating factors are for running an APM engagement right now. We'll look at what APM is and how some of our customers are adopting it, and then we'll go through some examples of how APM is put into process before some final thoughts. So there are two main problems that we're addressing here. The first is around not having enough money to spend on the strategic things that will help drive profitable growth. And the second problem area is around lacking agility to be able to respond to business demand. There are many reasons for this, some of which are outlined on the slide here. So in terms of the industry analysts' viewpoint, they're saying that sort of somewhere between 70 and 80% of IT budget is just going at keeping the lights on by enhancing, maintaining existing business applications. And the impact of that is that doesn't leave a huge amount of money to spend on the new things that will drive change. The second challenge is around agility, and many application portfolios are complex. They've built up over many years, and you get the situation where processes and systems become so interdependent on each other, you can't really change one without changing the other. And the impact of that is that it does hamper business agility. Then partially to do with that and a lot of the legacy that exists in many application portfolios is that there's an inherent risk around that, especially when the technologies that are required that underpin those applications are supported by a key number of people who could be leaving the organization due to retirement. So this is the problem space that we're addressing. And one thing is clear is that we do need to adopt a different way of thinking in order to address the problems than the type of thinking that actually got us into the trouble in the first place. Whilst many organizations have got mature processes for project portfolio management that do a really good job at making better investment decisions around the discretionary spend, the key point here is that many organizations don't have the same maturity that they apply to their existing application portfolios, which consume the vast majority of the IT budget. And the takeaway here is that if you want to drive structural changes, then the best hunting ground is where you're spending 80% of your IT budget. So in terms of what APM is, that there are many definitions out there in the industry as to what APM is. Most organizations tend to look at APM as a discipline that is applied to a specific type of organizational asset called an application. And to start doing APM, you need to have an inventory of what business applications that you've got. You need to understand who the business owner is for each of those applications and who's the responsible person in the IT organization. And you need to be able to capture some descriptive metrics about those applications and then make sense of all of that in order to make good decisions. And our particular slant on this within IBM Rational is definition that you can see at the top of this slide here. There are 3 points here. Firstly, that whilst the focus of APM is often on the initial assessment of the application portfolio, APM should really be a repeatable process that's used time and time again in order to make good decisions. Secondly, it should be around using information and analytics to make objective and transparent decisions. And then thirdly, those decisions should guide where we should be investing, what we need to consolidate, what we could modernize, and what we need to replace. And the benefits that we see from our APM, better alignment between the application portfolio and the business strategies and the processes that are put in place to meet those strategies. It identifies ways of looking at improvements in the application portfolio to reduce cost and optimize the value that we create when we make investments. It needs to look at making better, faster decisions around business change requests that are coming in, dealing with them more quickly, and also about reducing the risk that's associated with aging technologies and key resources. So to do application portfolio management, the trick is to get enough information from a number of different places in order to analyze it and make good decisions. And typically, that information can exist in a number of different areas. You might have a CMDB where you've got some basic information about the applications. You might have an enterprise architecture repository which shows how those applications exist within the context of the strategy and the systems and the processes. You might have Cognos or an SAP system where you've got some financial data about those applications. There might be spreadsheets where you've harvested some surveys from the business users of the applications. It could be a help desk where you've got figures for how many service requests have been logged against each application. So the trick is to get just enough of that information into one place in order to work out what you should be retiring. And if you do retire it, do we just leave it as is? Do we discontinue it? Or if we retain it, do we need to upgrade it to the latest version, or do we need to rehost it onto a cheaper platform? So it provides a foundation for supporting some of those key investment decisions. So when you've got the application inventory, you can use that as a basis to drive a number of IT optimization outcomes. So if you're approaching this having gone through a merger or an acquisition, or if you're going through a divestiture, you might want to look at what applications, where there's duplication, and look for areas for improvement from rationalization. We go through this process within IBM. A couple of years ago, we did a first wave of APM adoption, and we reduced our application count by 55%, and the maintenance costs decreased by 40% over 3 years. But we need to carry on doing this time and time again, because the applications just surface. We have more mergers, more acquisitions, and we end up with a portfolio that just increases and increases. It might be that we've got a modernization slant on this, and the architectural aspects of the applications could be improved in order to provide greater business agility. Or investment management, we might want to look at how we apply our discretionary spend to the application enhancements that we're receiving. SLA optimization is another quick win. If we're measuring the value of our applications, then we can align the most valuable applications to higher service level agreements. And that gives us a way to make sure that we're targeting IT resources at the applications that are really core to the business. So all of the scenarios that you see outlined here are possible and are supported by the management information that you get when you have a clear inventory of what business applications that you've got. And many organizations just don't have that visibility and that transparency. Okay, so in terms of how our customers are adopting this, last year we commissioned Forrester to interview a number of customers to build up a financial model of the return on investment that our customers are getting. And some of the benefits that they found was around the process efficiency of going out and collecting the data and making sense of it. They found that they were able to make better decisions around their investments, then target those investments to the mission-critical stuff. They were able to speed up the way that they dealt with business changes. And then when they were running rationalization projects, they were able to reduce their overall cost through consolidation and rationalization. Many of the customers that we got are approaching this through a phased process. So this example of a financial institution in Europe, well, their key problem was to figure out how best to allocate funds for rationalization and maintenance. And in the first phase, what they focused on doing was approaching architectural reviews in a consistent fashion. And the APM process helped the architects do health assessments consistently and submit architectural needs where the architecture boards could then prioritize those and make sure that the right initiatives were funded. And in the next phase, which is underway at the moment, they're looking at the interface into line of business and how they can add demand management processes to this, and how the investment review board can then review those requests and act accordingly. We've got a couple of published case studies that are on IBM.com. One is from a global conglomerate based in Europe, and their challenge was that they were spending 85% of their IT budget just keeping the lights on. Now, what they did was very quickly, they established an application inventory, and they were able then to involve the business and the IT in a discussion around the value of those applications, and they put in place a strategy to look at where there was duplication around different regions. What they did was they reduced the number of applications by 45%. They also reduced the amount of money keeping the lights on down to 50%, so they could target more funding at the strategic initiatives. They had a greater challenge, though, in terms of lacking business agility, and their average response time to business change requests used to be 200 days. And what they found was that by implementing a demand management process and combining that with reducing the application maintenance and operations spend, they enabled IT to reduce the response time to 14 days, which is a very significant achievement. Over in North America, we worked with a financial institution who had challenges with the complexity of the application portfolios that had built up over 40 or 50 years. And what we were able to do there was to establish the application inventory and then put in place a way of being able to measure the value and to reduce the number of supported applications significantly over an 18-month period. And like a number of other organizations, they rationalized their service level agreements, and after they'd measured the business value of the applications, they aligned those applications to higher SLAs, and they were able to provide better support out to the business for the mission-critical stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through a process of how APM can be supported in action. So IBM Rational, our integrated solution for APM, provides an out-of-the-box and customizable information model together with a set of analytics and views and workflows to get you started. So here we can see a very simplified workflow for a portfolio assessment with some of the roles involved. And what we're going to do now is just look through some of the ways that process could be supported. And then we'll move on to a demonstration towards the end of this. So the starting point here is where the executives define what some of the high-level goals are for the APM exercise. So it's very high-level things like we want to reduce the number of applications that we've got in our portfolio by 40%, or reduce the cost by 20% by the end of 2015. And then what we do is decompose that into a set of targets. So each quarter, how many applications do we want to retire? What's our goal? How much savings do we want to get from that? And then we can measure and track how we're performing in terms of what we're planning, as well as what actually happens going forward. The first thing that needs to be done is to establish an application inventory. And many organizations that I speak with have at least a partial inventory captured in one or many spreadsheets. And you can easily import these spreadsheets into the tooling and then use role-based interfaces to capture additional information. And over time, organizations may then want to invest in automated feeds from a variety of other sources. And the solutions that we have support open APIs to allow connectors to be built to desired environments. So the value of the application inventory is then to provide a single source of truth upon which you can provide analytics to enable effective decision making. What we do here is provide a very easy way to collect information using role-based views where only information that's relevant to the people and the step in the life cycle is visible and asked for. There are notifications that then prompt people for what they need to provide at various stages in the process. And the quality assurance part is a really key concern when you go through an APM engagement, especially if you try to do that using spreadsheets. We build quality into the APM process by providing things like choice selections to ensure information is collected in a consistent fashion, gate reviews, and various quality assurance steps to ensure that entered information is complete and correct. So the next step then is to leverage some of the visualizations that the tooling can provide to analyze the information that you've captured. So in this example, on the x-axis, we've got the IT quality or the IT score. Then on the y-axis, we've got the business score, and the size of the bubble in this example represents the annual spend of the applications. And what this view does is it helps us to identify applications that are candidates for modernization and consolidation. So applications in the upper left corner here have got high business value and low IT value. So we want to keep them, but we should consider modernizing them in order to improve their IT score. And if the bubble is big, we're spending a lot of money on them, and there's therefore a bigger incentive to consider modernization, since this is where we're going to get a potential for savings, whether it's licensing costs or lower hardware costs or efficiencies in delivering enhancements. Applications in the lower left corner have low business value and low IT value, and these are the candidates for decommissioning and consolidation. So there are lots of other views available to help you slice and dice the data and to come to decisions more quickly. So to determine whether or not you want to decommission an application or whether to modernize it, you often require more information, and there are potential sources for this information, including application analytics or enterprise architecture tooling. So if you were to use something like Rational System Architect, for instance, you can then do impact analysis to see what the business processes are that the application supports, or what other application components could be impacted if we decommission an application. You can also use role-based scorecards in order to get appropriate information if you don't have enterprise architecture already in place. So leading on from this, this is when you then set potential dispositions. And one of the things that we do within IBM is to categorize the applications into gold, silver, bronze, and blue. And we use the analytics to automate the way that the applications are grouped in this way. What this enables us to do is when we're running application maintenance and application enhancement projects, we've got something now that acts as a yardstick to target our decisions. So if there's something that's gold, so it's critical to the business at the moment and it's going to be strategic to the business moving forward, we might want to do all of the maintenance activities and all of the enhancements, whereas something that is maybe bronze, we might want to only do enhancements if it's going to be useful over a long-term period. We might also want to do this within the context of the enterprise architecture. So if we've got a model of our as-is state and we're building up a picture of what the to-be state is, then the way that we're going to get there is through a number of different projects that are going to implement those changes. So often using the enterprise architecture as a benchmark is a good way of being able to come up with a set of recommendations. One of the next things that we would want to do then is to come up with a set of decompositions. So, what should we be keeping as is, and what, if we're not keeping it as is, do we need to decommission, and what do we need to wrap, what do we need to migrate? And what we can do then is capture a set of opportunities or potential projects, some of which will be short-term tactical opportunities, others will be longer-term opportunities for transformation. But we can begin to document them centrally, link them back to the affected applications, and get everyone seeing a single coherent view. And one of the capabilities that the tooling then provides is ways of building up the business cases and taking into account some of the uncertainties around our predictions of what the cost and the benefits are. So in this example here, we've been able to estimate worst case and best case scenarios, and then we've got a way now of looking at the various probabilities of achieving the goals of the business case. So in this case, there's a 10% chance that if we do this project, we're going to deliver £369,000 of return on investment, whereas there's a 10% chance that it might only be 14,000. So we can use this to drive out risk and get greater consensus as to the real reasons for investing in initiatives. When we've got a set of potential projects, and we might want to then look at how we get the executives to prioritize based on which of those initiatives are going to address the most business risks and issues, and then from an IT perspective, which of those opportunities is going to be the most simple and self-contained. And there are different ways that the tooling can support that, one of which is to compare those opportunities side by side in order to gauge the relative value for different audiences. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through a short demonstration to give you a feel for how the solutions look and what sort of information that you could be provided with. So I've logged into to Rational Focal Point, which is an application portfolio management tool, and there are a set of dashboards here that help me to manage the portfolio and the assessment process and the transformation programs that come out from that. So one of the things I might want to do is to split the portfolio down into a number of different domains, and I could drill down into this information to see, in this case, the 15 applications that are part of the risk control domain. So against each of these applications, we can see which are active in a state of maintenance, which applications are in the process of being developed or updated, and we can drill down from the dashboards directly into the detailed application record itself. So there's some workflow to guide how the application moves through, in this case, an assessment process. And there's a configurable web form down here to capture various information around the business and the IT value of the application. So in this case, is the application customer-facing? Is it revenue-generating? We can score the application on the scale of 1 to 5. From a technical perspective or from an IT perspective, how aligned is this application to our IT strategy, and what level of risks and issues are we encountering with the application? We might take some feeds from tools like Rational Asset Analyzer or third-party tools like Cast in order to get some more detailed metrics about the applications. And then we can use analytics to drive how those applications are categorized, and we can then begin to earmark potential dispositions for the application. So in this case, we're thinking about moving the application offshore for support. So right from the dashboard, I've been able to drill down into the detail. We can also get high-level views of how the applications are performing at a portfolio level. We can manage by exception, in this case by flagging up applications that have failed SLAs a number of times. We could drill down into the detail to look at the reasons why. We can get views and reports to look at where applications are within their application lifecycle. We can define a number of strategies that we want to align our applications to, and then we can use that in order to ask ourselves, well, are we really putting our money where our mouth is when it comes to where we're investing in our applications? If this business strategy is much more important than another business strategy, but we're spending too much money in one area, then maybe we should be reprioritizing this. When we go through an assessment process, we talked about how the executive board might want to then put together a decommissioning plan to chart progress. So each quarter, what's our retirement goal and our savings, and then actually what have we retired? So let's drill down into what happened in Q1 of last year. So we can see that we did retire one application, and there are two more that are yet to be retired. So in terms of the actual savings, it's less than we thought were the planned savings. We might define a number of stages that we go through in an assessment process. So as an assessment manager, I can make sure that there aren't any blockers within that process. I can use views and reports to identify, when we've gone through that process, how many things we earmarked for discontinuation, or what applications we're looking to move offshore. And then moving outside of a rationalization process, we might define our investment strategy. So it's represented in this area here. So the y-axis is a target of how the application would support the business going forward, and the x-axis is how the application supports the business as it stands at the moment. Then the numbers in the various quadrants here represent the guide for whether we should be increasing our spend or decreasing the spend on the applications. And how we can use that then is to set some top-down targets for how we want to target investment change at a portfolio level, and then use assessments of the application value from the bottom up in order to rationalize that. So within the tooling, there are templates which are configurable that help you to get started and to start harvesting some of the information that you need in order to make good decisions about the portfolio. Okay, so just in terms of the capabilities, so we've seen how we can create an inventory of the business applications that's accessible through a browser that's designed for business users. We've seen how we can then get information from business and IT contacts using scorecards, and then how we can analyze that in order to identify areas for improvement. We also provide a way of being able to identify the opportunities for change, both the short-term tactical opportunities and the longer-term transformational opportunities, and then how we can plan and sequence those in order to drive forward the change that we need. So the business value of this is outlined here. So it's all about being able to shift the money that we're spending to the things that will help us to innovate and reduce cost. It's about making better investment decisions that align to the organizational strategies, speeding up the way that we deal with with business change, and then being able to introduce these capabilities incrementally in order to deliver value and secure buy-in, move forward. This integrates with the rest of the Rational portfolio for application lifecycle management, and it helps us to get that consolidated view from the strategic planning through into the project delivery.